Welcome to this React Data Grid component tutorial. In this video, I'll show you the customization options available for cells using CSS, properties, methods, events, and templates in the Syncfusion React Data Grid. First, I open my existing React application, where I've already added the basic code to render the Data Grid component. If you want to learn how to get started with the React Data Grid, check out the video linked in the card and description. I run the application using the command npm rundev. As you can see, the React Data Grid component renders. Let's start with customizing cell styles. First, I'll show you how to customize cells using CSS. I define CSS classes in the app.css file to apply different background colors and text styles while selecting on cell. These classes can be reused for different cells and conditions. In this example, I am customizing the appearance of a specific cell in the grid on selection using class name. Next, I'll customize cells using a grid event. For cell level customization, I use the query cell info event. This event is triggered before each cell is rendered in the grid, which allows me to apply conditional styling. In this example, I define a callback function named customizeCell. Inside this function, I first check the column field. If the field is freight, I apply different text colors based on the freight value. If the freight value is less than or equal to 30, a CSS class named below 30 applies to that cell. Otherwise, a CSS class named above 30 applies. In the app.css file, I define the background color for this class. Once the conditions are defined, I assign this customizeCell function to the queryCellInfo event of the DataGrid component. Now you can see the cells highlighted based on the condition. Next, I'll show cell customization using properties. The data grid provides built-in properties that directly affect how cells are rendered. In this example, I define custom CSS class in the app.css file to apply background and font color. Then I configure the CSS class through custom attributes and customer ID column field. Once configured, the data grid automatically applies them to the cells. Now let's look at customizing cells using data grid methods. For this scenario, I'll customize both a header cell and a specific data cell after the data grid has finished rendering. To do this, I use the dataBound event. This event is triggered after the data grid is fully rendered. It is useful when you want to access grid elements directly and apply customization using built-in grid methods. First, I store the data grid instance using the ref property. This gives me access to the grid methods inside the component. Inside the dataBound function, I start by customizing the header cell. I use the getHeaderContent method to get the data grid's header element. From this header element, I select a header cell using a query selector. Then I apply styles directly to the header cell. In this example, I change the background color and the text color. I assign this function to the dataBound event of the DataGrid component. You can now see how the header styled after the data grid is rendered. Next, I'll customize a specific data cell. For this, I use the getCellFromIndex method. This method allows me to access a cell by providing the row index and column index. In this example, I access the cell at row index 1 and column index 2. Once I get the cell element, I apply styles directly to it. In this example, I change the background color and the text color. Now you can see that specific cell highlighted in the data grid. Finally, let's look at column customization using templates. We can render custom elements like images, hyperlinks, and other components instead of a field value within a column. I'll show you how to add a column that displays random images. I add a new column directive with the header text image, a width of 180, and text align set to center. I create a function template that returns a random image using the PixumPhotos API. I assign this function to the template property of the image column directive. You can see the additional column with the images. You can also apply a column template based on conditions. I define the function conditional template and add the conditions. If the freight value is greater than 100, it returns a span with the value platinum. If the freight value is greater than 75, it returns a span with the value gold. And if the freight value is greater than 50, it returns a span with the value silver. Then I add a new column subscription and assign this function to the template property. Now the templates are applied based on those conditions. Let's wrap up this video. In this video, I showed you how to customize individual cells using CSS, properties, methods, events in Syncfusion React Data Grid. I also demonstrated how to apply custom templates to columns and render conditional templates based on specific conditions. If you want to try out the example used in this video, download it from the GitHub link in the description below. I have also shared a link to learn how to obtain a free license key to use our React components through our community license if you are eligible. Thank you for watching this video. If you found this video helpful, please like and subscribe to our channel.